Hello, I thought it would be a good time to create a new devlog of the Wicked Engine development. So right now it's 2025 December. The new improvements that are part of today's release is, well, first let's see the new terrain spline update. Add the new terrain, then the new spline. When the spline is selected, enable a terrain modifier for it. Add new nodes with Ctrl E, and you can already see the improvement that compared to the last video, not the whole terrain is always rebuilt, but only the parts that the spline touches, so it's much faster and much more usable, I think. You can sort of see some weird artifacts behavior with this. The terrain rebuilding is not as fluid as it could probably have been, but it's much more usable right now. Even if there are disconnects while dragging the spline, disconnects in the terrain chunks, they will be properly updated once you let go of the spline and let the updating fully be processed. I didn't let the terrain updating to take too long, so it has some kind of limitation of a couple milliseconds that it can run. That's why it, after a while, it kind of cancels its generation. So that's the reason that this kind of lag appears there. But I think it's pretty good now. Also, let's check out some of the other spline modifications. With the terrain modifier, you can increase or decrease the sharpness of the terrain spline, and you can also push down the terrain compared to the spline's height, and the width of the spline. Also, not only you can control the global width of the spline, but also if you select the spline node and then press free on the keyboard, you can also scale the spline node, and that will also affect the terrain. Okay, I think that's it for the terrain spline improvement. Other improvements are generally performance improvements. I replaced the shared pointers in the engine to a custom implementation which uses pooled allocations. For the performance tests, I mainly viewed the FPS sample. Actually, let's open that. Okay, so also enter full screen mode. Like this. This is not a huge improvement in CPU performance, but it was noticeable. If I bring up the profiler, then well, actually it might not be the same while recording the video, but the CPU timing on that red CPU graph was actually reduced down to about 4 milliseconds on my computer, which was an improvement to the previous about 5 milliseconds CPU time while just looking around and not being in combat. Also, some other things is that the grass generation, the hair particle system, is actually well, I improved the CPU performance of the creation of those grass particles a bit. So the creation previously was but the GPU buffers for the hair particle system is created on the CPU. It was also zeroed out on the CPU for safety reasons, and now that part is done on the GPU, and some other minor improvements of how it's allocated and stuff. And the main reason for that is that zeroing out the grass particles on the CPU could take kind of a long time, and even though it's in the terrain generation it's done on the separate background thread, that could take sometimes so long that it could cause a CPU performance spike and small hitches while traversing the terrain on the chunks where the grass density is really high. Anyway, that's now kind of reduced, I think, and it has a more consistent behavior. Some other improvements are made by others. For example, the environment probe's update rate can now be tweaked. So to show that, let's exit the FPS sample right now, and let's go to the sponsor, and let's turn on environment probe visualizer, which was all turned off by the FPS sample and the editor that didn't reflect that. And okay, I'm still in the bullet cursor of the FPS sample, but it's not important right now. Let's select the environment probe, and in its settings then you can modify the update interval of it if you set it to real time. And now you can see the curtains which are moving are now updated at a lower refresh rate, which can be helpful if you having for example many environment probes that you want to update in your game. You can reduce their update interval to have a faster or slower rate. If you reduce it to 0, then it will simply be updated every frame as they were before. Okay, so what else? That there was also a little update by the same guy who who made this improvement. You can now toggle force unlit in the general options. That will make the whole rendering use the unlit rendering mode. This can be used for some asset setup to like visualize the textures in a more uniform way without all the lighting. Also, you can now place entities in front of the camera always. With this checkbox, place entities in front of the camera. If you check this and add the new anything like a cube, it will be put in front of the camera instead of the world origin as it was before. Or if you put a new light or anything, or for example an emitter, it also places in front of the camera. This can be very useful to place objects in the scene more easily. Also, wireframe mode was updated recently. Perhaps it was in the previous update, but let me show this. The wireframe only mode is the old wireframe that I made, and the wireframe overlay is a new wireframe rendering mode that also displays the scene underneath, which makes it just look nicer. And the Control W key is also will toggle between all of them. Okay, what else? Yeah, I updated the engine code base to support the ARM64 compile target, so now it can be compiled for the ARM devices. I think those are the Windows Surface tablets, maybe. I don't have one of those, so I couldn't test it, but the compilation now works. And that was part of the work that I started for Apple macOS device that I got my hands on, which uses our ARM64, and then that was the main reason I was working on those on that compilation. So I will be creating a new Mac OS version for Wicked Engine that targets the Metal graphics API and completely native Metal version without any dependencies like the SDL, which is going to be also supported, but I think it will be really cool if we can get it working without that as well. I think this is it for this devlog. Enjoy the new updates. Let me know how you find the Wicked Engine, what would you like to see in the future, and yeah, I hope I can finish the macOS version, at least the base features in macOS version this December. My attention will be fully occupied by that. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.